Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker Show. This is your roundup of all things maker and embedded and lovely. And on this week's show we announced the winner of our Arduino Product of the Week Plug and Make giveaway that we started a while ago, and we introduced this week's Product of the Week, the Texas Instruments MSPM0C1104 LaunchPad Development Kit. And if you're wondering why it's such a long designation, you're going to have to watch the video from Robin to find out, but I'll give you a clue. It might have something to do with Texas Instruments being one of the most trusted names in the embedded world for decades. And they have not been dragging their feet. This is a really wonderful one. You're not going to want to miss it. And of course, you can win it. Now, we'll also be talking about Nordic's latest system and package for cellular IoT. We'll be talking about two wonderful accessibility-focused maker projects on the Electromaker Hub and much more. So with all of that to get through this week, let's start the show. Now, a quick date for your diary. On the 29th of October, Mouser and Analog Devices are putting on a free webinar. It's at 5 p.m. Central European Time. You can be part of it live. If you're not able to attend it live, you can get the video after the fact, although it is nice to be a part of live events, albeit ones that are digital and remote. What makes this one very interesting is that it's on the subject of radar and sensor fusion. Of course, radar being essentially the way that robots see, or one of many ways that robots can see. And this particular webinar is from the people developing the actual parts that will go into the robots of the future. So it's a great way to get a view from the manufacturer's point of view as to where things will be going, and whether you're already working in the industry or maybe it's something you're interested in doing in the future if you're into the idea of robotics. These things are very useful to be a part of. I have been trying to attend various webinars on and off for years, despite the fact that I'm not an engineer, I'm just a hobbyist, and I will be the first to admit that sometimes things at webinars go wildly over my head, but there's something uniquely wonderful about having someone explain how something works to you in real time. And just to sort of be there as part of the ride rather than desperately cramming for how you can do one certain thing or one other thing. Just getting an overview of everything in one go is a very nice way of doing it. So I've already blabbed a little bit too much about that. At the time of recording this video, it is 23 days away still, but I would get your place as soon as you possibly can if you're interested in it. This page will be linked in the description of the video, and all you need to do is add everything into here, your name, your email address, all that kind of stuff, and then you will be allowed access to the seminar when it happens. Now, Electromaker community member DonutsOrElse has made a variety of very interesting projects over the years. In fact, if you look at his user profile, you will see his most recent ones are accessibility focused, and we'll be coming onto that in just a moment. But I first became aware of DonutsOrElse with the poison ivy detecting and killing gloves, which incorporates a huge amount of different technology to visually identify plants and then spray weed killer out of a wrist-mounted gas canister if it actually detected poison ivy. It's like the weirdest superhero against poison ivy suit Iron Man type thing that I've come across. I really loved that. But what we're talking about today is his latest duo of projects which are specifically accessibility focused, a direction he's been moving into a lot recently. Now, I will warn you, I'm going to really whip through these at quite some speed, partially because they're so well documented by DonutsOrElse. I would want you to go and read both of these for yourself, and partially because they have so many moving parts to make them fit together and work that for me to go through them would take up the entire show. So for a very high level view of two separate projects, one is smart cabinets with a custom smart home. These are voice activated cabinets that will open themselves and close themselves. And then there is a smart hiking stick for the visually impaired, which incorporates a huge amount of technology into a quite fat looking, because it's a prototype, stick. But of course, this is the kind of thing that would get changed over time. If this was turned into any kind of a real product, what DonutsOrElse is doing here is bouncing some ideas around, making some proof of concepts, prototyping ideas that could help people using low-cost parts, which is really where we as makers can come into making things a little bit better, because ultimately, if we're thinking low-cost and simple at the get-go, at the genesis of these ideas, the chances of taking that through a full product development cycle are much, much higher. Call me naive if you will. So, smart cabinets, how do these work? Well, they need to open by themselves, hence using microservers. Now, microservers are not going to be powerful enough for certain cabinets, but again, Donuts has made videos for both of these things, and you can see the various ideas he goes through in the various iterations of how to make it work during it. But you can see these microservers aren't exactly microservers. They've got a bit of grunt to them. It's able to open a proper actual cabinet in his house. So you have some servos that are going to open and close things. What are you going to use to run that? Well, he's chosen to use the Unihiker single board computer. I haven't had any hands-on actual work with the Unihiker, but every time I come across it in a project, it seems so compelling. A truly tiny Linux single board computer, smaller than Raspberry Pi format, but with a touchscreen built into it, and some custom software that makes it very easy to run whatever kind of code you want to on it, with a lot of built-in libraries and examples that you can use as well. I can never tell what you can hear through the whole YouTube microphone and noise cancellation thing, but it did sound like every policeman in Berlin was running past the window just outside, or driving past the window outside just a moment ago, so apologies if it was a little bit loud for a second. So, having chosen the Unihiker as the single board computer to run the show, there needs to be some kind of go-between to actually run the servo motor. And for that, he used a Xiao ESP32C3 board, because they're very tiny form factor and very easy to get working up and running. I tell a lie, he didn't use an SC3, he used an S3. I completely misread that. Well, that's just a much more powerful, tiny development board then. And then using MQTT to connect between things to make it actually part of a smart home setup. Now, the beauty of using, again, the Unihiker single board computer is that there is voice recognition Python libraries that you can just install straight off the bat, and you can say certain wake words. In this particular case, I think the wake word is butler, and you say butler, open something, butler, do this, do that. And then he's using if this, then that as a way of connecting to it as well. There are multiple ways that you can do this, and again, if you read the article, he will go into that as well. It's definitely worth having a look at if you're interested in any way at making completely custom automated stuff, whether you have an accessibility focus to your ideas or whether you're just wanting to make something for yourself for convenience. This combines a lot of real sort of gold standard stuff for DIY home automation, doesn't it? Moving things automatically like blinds, or in this case cabinet doors, voice recognition that doesn't rely on an external cloud service or one of the big four. It's quite an interesting thing. However, we have a whole other project to talk through as well, which usefully incorporates a few similar things, so we can kind of cut down on the length of time it will take. But once again, I absolutely recommend going through, looking at the video that is fantastic, methodical, goes through the idea and how it will work, and is also just has a very inimitable style as to the way he presents his videos as well. It's a really fantastic channel. And then the write-up, which goes through every single idea, iteration, and how this came together. But in short, once again, you have the Unihiker single board computer, and he goes through how you can actually set this thing up to auto boot, so when it's inside the walking stick, if you want to keep it in there and you don't have to mess around with it, you can do that. And a bunch of different sensors as well. So some of them are fairly simple distance sensors, some of them are a bit more fancy. For example, we have a GPS sensor on it as well here, which is quite interesting because the DF Robot Gravity GNSS sensor that he has on it, I believe, is kind of somewhat superseded by the fact that he also has a Blues note card on it, the cellular IoT variant of the note card, which gives you cellular IoT connectivity. But as every single note that is sent from a note card, part of the metadata of that note is your GPS coordinates. And of course, once you have that data in the cloud, you can do all kinds of interesting things like geofencing, like sending a message if someone is in a position where you don't expect them to be. Again, if you are a visually impaired hiker and you're trying to stick to a specific trail and something does go slightly awry, it would be very nice to know that people will be automatically notified so that they can maybe just give you a ring and say, hey, I think you might have gone off trail, rather than it having to be something a little bit more dramatic. I think ultimately, when it comes to many things in life, this is the kind of convenience that the more emergency focused things should be bringing. It's all well and good having something that in the very worst circumstances will help you, but that same technology being able to help you without it being a massive amount of worry and concern from other people will have a huge amount of utility, I would think. Please do correct me if I am wrong in the comments. I would very much like to know about that. So, moving on, you have the Blues note card as well, and because of all of the different sensors and things that are working on the board, but mostly because of the fact you have this connectivity wherever you're going, you can add a bunch of different things. So from the Note Hub with Blues, you can send Twilio text messages to notify you or other people of things based on your location, based on whether there's been some kind of fall. There's fall detection in there as well. And there's other nice things, like you can poll a weather API every 15 minutes and send weather data through well in advance before a storm would be coming, for example. Something that, if you're not able to scan the horizon for clouds particularly easily, would have a lot of utility, I would think. Now, this is, once again, a prototype, and I would like to point out that this stick, as fat as it looks, would look a lot worse if I was the one that made it. It would be a lot of breadboards stuck onto a broom handle. This thing is actually quite a work of art in and of itself, but it is a prototype, one that is aimed specifically to help people with certain accessibility needs, and both of these projects are the kind of projects that I absolutely love. I would really be happy if you could go to the projects and click through to DonutsOrElse's YouTube channel, show him some love there, subscribe to the channel, and yes, encourage this kind of work, because I love it when people do stuff like this. Now, a couple of weeks ago on the show, we featured the Arduino Plug and Make kit as our product of the week. And if you would like to see that video, you can of course head to the channel or look at the link in the description, and you can see Robin's walkthrough of Arduino's fantastic solderless IoT learning kit, which features the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi and a bunch of modulinos, which are Arduino's take on the sort of Adafruit modules that connect by stemma QT, or the quick micro modules that attach using the quick system. This is Arduino's entry into it, and as you would expect, it's quite well formed out, especially for beginners. However, we started a contest to win one of these kits based on complete luck. You have to enter using a hashtag, although we always like to know what you would build if you did win it, and it is now time to announce the winner of that contest. And the winner is Thomas Seibold 4055 with a comment that says, I would use the hashtag plug and make in conjunction with a separate infrared beam sensor to detect and count bats entering and leaving a bat house on their nightly search for insects. That might be one of the most interesting suggestions for a project that we've ever had in a competition entry, and I'd be very interested to see how that pans out. Please do put it on the Electromaker Project Hub when you do. Now, Thomas, congratulations. We'll be in touch with you as to how we can get this plug and make kit out to you. However, if you entered this competition and did not win, fear not, because we have another product of the week. It is another contest, and it's another one that I think you're really going to want to win. Yes, our product of the week is from Texas Instruments, and it is the LP MSPM0C1104 LaunchPad Development Kit. Now, that is a very long name, I appreciate that, but there's a reason for it, because Texas Instruments have been making trusted microcontrollers for a very long time, decades. You get to a point where you need long designation numbers, and there's a reason why when people need low-cost, low-power, trusted parts, they can reach for Texas Instruments. Now, when I say low power, what do I mean? I don't mean that this isn't capable. I mean that it has a low power draw. And if you want to know the full engineering reasoning why this might be the case, Robin Mitchell has you covered. He's an engineer. He is an actual proper educator rather than an enthusiastic person in an attic, and he'll be able to take you through the full run through of why you would want to use this in your project. All I can give you is anecdotes. However, it's a pretty decent anecdote, which is I have over the years had many times when I've really wanted to look at the lowest possible way I could get the lowest power draw out of a certain kind of project or whatever. And again, this is just n=1 anecdote from me. More often than not, if you're on a forum where people are talking about, I want to use this, I want this to have less power, I want this, it'll get to a point when they say, use this Texas Instrument part instead. It will do everything you need to do, yet it uses the lowest power across the board. I've trusted these things forever. Just go and get it. There's a reason why people get good reputations, I suppose. Now, the kit itself, as you can see here, actually comprises 2 chips. And the weird thing is, this massive chip on the side here is not the chip we're talking about. This is the chip designed for programming and debugging and everything you will need to know for the development board. The actual chip itself is this tiny little guy over here. And amazingly, this is the star of the show. This is doing everything that it needs to do. So when it comes to incorporating it into a design, these things can be absolutely tiny. This is the kind of thing that might be perfect for wearables, for example, because again, you have that amazing low power draw, meaning a very long battery life. Now, you may be familiar with Texas Instruments on the Electromaker channel because we've spoken to them at trade shows before, and I'd like to draw your attention to one specific thing that we saw at last year's Embedded World at the Developer Zone. Because TI have a browser-based IDE that will allow you to plug development boards into the USB port of your computer and get up and running so quickly that they were confident enough to make a speedrunner screen. So if you look here, on the screen behind here, in a moment it's going to switch over to a sort of speedrun view of someone. So you can see in the corner just here, you have a speedrunner's clock. They're plugging the development board into the computer, selecting the development board it is, and getting the code up and running. If you'd like to see this full interview, I'll leave this in the description as well. And as you can see, we're 1 minute in and they're already in the IDE and going through a certain set of steps. And I think they finish up at 1 minute and 52 seconds to get the board programmed with example code and debugging without installing installing anything onto the host machine. Now, that is not unique to the development board that we're talking about here today, but it is something that I think is absolutely worth knowing, because if you think that using professional grade embedded stuff has to be very, very difficult, that's not the case anymore. The days of having to use, say, the Arduino IDE or CircuitPython in order to be able to understand something from a non-engineer's point of view are slowly numbered, really. They're changing. A lot of the larger manufacturers are realizing that they can have that same level of accessibility to the amazing industrial tools they've been using for the last decades. So, I will say nothing more about it. I would like you to go and watch Robin's fantastic video on it. There was also the accompanying blog post. However, I would like to point out this time and going forward, the competition that we're about to begin, you enter by going to the YouTube channel. This video here that's embedded in the blog, if you click on the title, it will open the actual video on our YouTube channel, and then you enter in the comment section under this video, just down here. Although I have it so zoomed in you can't see it very easily. Here we go, yes. So this is where you will enter the competition underneath this video that already has a bunch of comments on it already, but by the time you're seeing this, there'll hopefully be a few that have competition entries as well. And the other way, of course, you can find this video is by just going to the Electromaker YouTube channel just here and looking at our most recent videos. It happens to be the most recent video on the channel, although by the time you're watching this will be. So just a quick recap. If you would like to win the MSPM0C1104 LaunchPad development kit from Texas Instruments, you need to be subscribed to this YouTube channel. You need to head to the video for the product of the week and leave a comment underneath it saying what you would make with this development kit if you won it, along with the hashtag Texas Instruments, all one word, no spaces, hashtag Texas Instruments. We'll be announcing the winner of this contest in the next 2 weeks or so don't hesitate, get your entries in today. I'm really interested to hear what you would make if you won this. Now, around 6 months ago, Nordic Semiconductor hinted that the nRF9151 would be coming soon. This is their slimmed down but equally powerful version of their flagship nRF9161 system in package for cellular IoT. To wind back to the start very briefly, the nRF9160, I know this is a lot of numbers, was a system in package for cellular IoT. It could do everything you needed to send and receive packages from the cloud, and with a host microcontroller, you could use it as a very low power way of adding connectivity to your project anywhere. The nRF9161 came along and added other things like DECT NR+ support, and the nRF9151 amazingly seems to do everything the 61 did, but in a smaller package. So the nRF9161 isn't going anywhere, it's not end of life or anything, but I can't think of any particular reason why you'd want to use the nRF9161. I certainly haven't come across any other comparison reasons why not. Now, while it is somewhat outdated, I will be leaving in the description this chart I always mention when I talk about Nordic Semiconductor products because it's so useful. This was someone asking a while ago about the difference between the nRF9160 and the nRF9161, which is functionally similar to the nRF9151 we're talking about today. And this wonderful chart from Martin Lasund from Nordic Semiconductor shows you some great differences. I won't go through all of those differences now because I think me listing specifications isn't really going to have any utility for you as a viewer, but I will leave this link in the description in case you'd like to look into it yourself. So the nRF9151 product page has the key features listed down the side. It also has a PDF product brief you can find at the bottom here, which goes through everything, but it mentions here on the page there's a couple of main benefits for it. The first being that the nRF9151 is unique in its power class, in that it adds power class 5, 20 decibel milliwatt output power, which is different from any of the predecessors, which just had power class 3, 23 decibels per milliwatt power output. It has global connectivity and power efficiency, which, the integrated modem enables global connectivity without regional limitations and include new unique modem features, which I'll admit I haven't looked into yet. That's going to be something for a future episode when I hopefully will have one of the development boards in my hands and will be maybe going through the bring up of it. And the potential of DECT NR+. As I mentioned earlier in this section, this is something that is relatively new to me, but has kind of lodged itself in my head as the standard for 5G meshing in industrial IoT. At least it will be in the future when it is fully adopted. And the fact that this is something that you can get just out of the box with this system and package is of course very useful. And there is, of course, a development kit as well from Nordic. So the NRF9151 doesn't just come as a system in package that you're expected to put on your own board, although, of course, once you have done all of the work you need to with the development board, that's what you're going to be able to do. Because the development board is designed to be able to approach the system in package with any kind of input or output you want to be able to profile the power, whether you're using Nordic's power profiling tools or its battery management stuff like its MPM fuel gauge, or whether you're using your own tools. The idea is that this is open and you can do anything you want with the system in package, so that when you come to put it in your own design, you know that you have tested it in every single way that you need to. And it's fitting that on this episode we're talking about the NRF9151, that this is an episode that Nordic Semiconductor have decided to sponsor, which we're very glad of, because as I've made clear many times, we do not monetize our YouTube channel, we do not monetize our podcast, so it means a lot when companies we work with reach out to sponsor episodes of the Electromaker Show, because it very much keeps the lights on. And we couldn't be happier to have Nordic sponsoring us, because frankly we've been talking about the things they make for a very long time. They are locally designed chips that now work across a variety of bands. There's a time when I would have said if you want anything for Bluetooth Low Energy, go to Nordic Semiconductor. This is still entirely true. But as we've just talked about, they have industry-leading cellular IoT system in packages as well, and now they've moved into Wi-Fi 6 with the NRF7002 and other lines of IC based around that idea, which bring all of the benefits of Wi-Fi 6 to the table as well. Every single thing that they have, which include other development tools like Nordic's Power Profiling Kit for testing the power usage of your project, or the MPM Fuel Gauge, which is specifically for working with their power management chip. They have a wonderful PMIC power management chip that puts everything you need into a tiny IC, getting rid of extra components on your board. And every single one of these things is integrated into the NRF Connect system. They have a desktop app, or a series of desktop apps that you can use as a programmer, you can use for power profiling, you can use for everything that you would need to do. But this also folds very nicely into the NRF Connect SDK, which, as I previously mentioned, works with the Zephyr project. Now, having this backbone of the Zephyr project means that you have a huge amount of example code and example usage of sensors and various other things at your fingertips already, all configurable using a certain set of tools which are from Zephyr, but that Nordic have made much easier to work with thanks to their Visual Studio Code plugin. I could talk for a very long time about how all of these different ways of integrating things make it very easy to get started with what is very high-level engineering kit, even for a hobbyist like me, but instead I would suggest to take a quick look at the links in the description, which will take you to Nordic's main website so you can see their full product portfolio, and a few select links that I think really show how Nordic are approaching this in the right way. In that some of their links don't just lead through to how you can buy their products, some of their product guides are literally some of the best tutorial materials I've come across on the Zephyr project through the NRF Connect SDK that I've ever seen before. So if you're interested in getting started with really high-level tools for Bluetooth Low Energy, cellular IoT, or Wi-Fi 6, I suggest you take a look at the link in the description, or just head to the link on the screen right now to head to Nordic's main page and find out about their full product portfolio. Now, some time ago, we talked about the M5Dial, or just the M5Dial as it's called somewhere. It is, unsurprisingly, from M5Stack, and as is their main way of doing things, it is an ESP32-based development board with a difference. It's built on the M5 Stamp, which is a truly tiny development board for the ESP32, but in this case, it's built into the housing of a rotary encoder with a touchscreen. Now, it has a few extra things on board. It has sound output, it has an RFID reader, but essentially, it is a very bright touchscreen with very good response and lots of very nice ticking. And I remember at the time going through a bunch of different demos of it. But as I was looking at this again, we've been posting about it because we've just got a fresh amount of them in stock on the Electromaker store. I noticed that Matt from Not Enough Tech specifically has a video about the M5Dial, which starts with...
Let's twist it to the microphone.
A tease, a real tease. He says, let's see what this thing sounds like, and then the video begins. But yes, I appreciate the YouTube hustle. But this is a wonderful walkthrough of the M5Dial and exactly what it can do and what it might be good for. So it doesn't just go through kind of all of the specs with some really wonderful videography from Matt. It also goes through some example code as well. So the M5 Stack comes with some demo features, and this is a really good way to get a very close-up view of what it feels like to use this thing. I initially thought this this would be something that I might get for messing around with, for doing some kind of smart home automation stuff up here in the attic. After seeing this video, I think I actually want to get one of these for the house downstairs, because it seems to be responsive enough that with some very simple coding on it, it's something that the entire family could use. That's if you've ever been someone who has a DIY hobby and children, you realize that when the two of them can come together, you're talking about a product that you probably are willing to put a bit of trust behind, or a product that you don't mind getting smashed because it's relatively cheap. In this particular instance, it's both. However, Matt goes further than this in his review. He shows you how the UI Flow editor can work. Well, UI Flow is the full browser-based IDE from M5 Stack, which has a UI editor for their touchscreen stuff. And UI Flow, by the way, is something we haven't covered much on the show, but we really should, because it's quite a powerful browser IDE. It comes from a slightly different school of thought than really deep embedded stuff. And of course, it's an ESP32 dev board. You can program it whatever way you want, with the Arduino IDE, with Platform IO, or you can use Espressive stuff and just spool it all up yourself using the board description if you'd like. But UI Flow is a bit different. It has block-based programming and MicroPython side by side, so you can skip between the two as you want to. And as you saw just a moment ago, it also has a UI designer that will allow you to design your own things. In this particular case, he's designing an on-screen thermostat feedback mechanism that will show what temperature the thermostat is, allow you to change that thermostat and press set. And on the back end, he's sending messages to and from his Node-RED server, which is connected to his thermostat in the house. We haven't talked about Matt on the show for a while. Matt, hello if you see this. But yeah, Not Enough Tech has for a long time been a truly, I always come back to his channel kind of thing, you know? And if you are interested in finding out more about Matt, head to the channel. There'll be a link to this M5Dial in the video. And if you would like to help us out at Electromaker and you want to get one of those yourself, you can of course get that in the Electromaker store as well. That has been our show for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your continued patience of the strange new hat situation. I'm not happy with it either, but it appears that my hat might be lost to time. I hope someone is enjoying wearing it in Hamburg or wherever it ended up after its train ride by itself. Anyway, that's a little bit of an off tangent, isn't it? I will be back next week with another Electromaker show. Please do let me know in the comments what you thought of this show, what you're working on, how it's going. I do love to hear from each and every one of you, and I will be back to chat to you next time. I hope you have a safe, fun, and creative week. Take care.